Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Dave, how are you today, buddy?
I'm great. Welcome back to the jump seat again, John. It's good to be here.
Awesome. It's good to be back, as always. For those joining for the first time, the jump seat is a weekly spotlight bringing you key industry insights, subject matter experts, and next-gen technologies affecting both you and your department. Led by two jump seat firefighters, myself, John, and Dave. And we are here in number 18 today. So pretty amazing that we've come this far, but here we are again. So,
hey, good things happen when you get stuck at home with coronavirus all around, right?
yeah,
So
get creative. That's
we
what started this. So
we get creative. So hey,
that's right.
I think we got a great show again today, and before we jump into our guests to get into some maybe a little bit more technical talk. There's been a couple big things happening in the fire service this week. Actually, there's a whole bunch that's happened this week. There's been weeks we've had to dig for stuff to talk about on key happenings, but there's been no shortage this week, that's for sure. So, John, I just wanted to kind of throw one right to you. You ever been on an incident, you've got one of those regularly occurring overhead power lines running from maybe a line at the pole all the way to the structure itself. And what do? What are the standard protocols, right? And I know on my department, we've got all kinds of different things. Put the cones out, particularly if one drops, put it there, have people stationed there. What do you guys do with that? You guys do anything around line safety, line protection?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's key before you get out of the truck, you ought to be looking for that stuff. And so we, do our standard 360. Our officer usually will do that. At that point, hopefully that's when you're paying attention. You got situational awareness in mind of what's going on around you. At that point, if we see something down, I mean, it's notify everybody on the scene, and then of course call utility, call whoever it is, and make sure they're on their way quick. So,
well, there's actually been two incidents this week, but one in particular I just want to call out, and I think you've got a little video to share here of this. Phoenix earlier this week, I believe it was on the 18th, so that'd have been Monday. Had an incident occur where they had a firefighter shocked because of one of these down power lines. In this specific case, I don't know the individual details there of this other than what was reported in the news side of things, and that the firefighter was injured and taken to the hospital, and it was stable conditions. I hope he's doing well and okay, he or she.
Right.
Last thing we want to do is ever have anybody get hurt. But in this case, it sounds like a line dropped into a puddle of water that was in conjunction with the firefighter and involved some kind of electrical shock. So, one of the things that was the first one I heard about. There was another one of live power lines bouncing around that started a big plastic fire, high tension lines down in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Yes.
Outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area, created a big incident there, massive fire, a whole bunch of plastics burning in the storage yard. And so both of those had to do with power line safety. And so I think it's something, kind of jump back to a couple of guests we've had that is very relevant to have that situational awareness, right? That's jumping back a few days.
Yeah.
And, so anyway, one of the key things I did this week was I set out to say, hey, is there good information out there somewhere that you can
Sorry for the delay. I was getting that video here of Phoenix.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that was the picture of that fire. You can see the fire in that video there off to the left side. That's where this firefighter was injured somewhere along this event that evening. So one of the things that I kind of looked into was, hey, John, is there someplace I can go find information on operating around these lines from a safety perspective? And, one of the things that I did come up with was a site, firerescue1.com had a couple really useful articles in there. In particular, here you go. There's one there. Powerline Safety, and I think we'll put that in the links here underneath the show. But it was a great little article there of giving some key tips on how to make sure you're operating safe in the fire ground. I also found a number of the local power companies put up emergency responder safety pieces, and I know here in Ohio, you can, where I'm actually from, you can contact the local power companies, and they do safety classes directly for the department. So just two incidents this week involving power lines. It never hurts to refresh our memory and think about, hey, what do we do? How do you do it? What are your specific SOPs and your state or local regulations? And we just want everybody to be safe out there. So feel free to read up on both those, the Grand Prairie fire as well as this Phoenix situation that we're Powerline involved this week. What else you got, John?
Yeah, that's great. I think it's time to hit the road and get the jump seat on the road for this week's version. We're going to go ahead and introduce our guests here in a second. We've got two guys that are both passionate about the job and making the fire service better, just as we try to do. And one of them comes from the city of Charlotte, as well as the other one, Pittsfield, Michigan. So I wanted to take a minute here and introduce our guests today. They're going to be talking about tactical thermal imaging use in the fire service. They've got some neat stuff to show us. So I'll go ahead and start with Jake. Jake, give us a quick bio of yourself, your department, and how long you've been in the fire service.
Well, my name's Jake Latson, so I've been in the fire service. This is my 19th year. I work for the Pittsfield Township Fire Department, which is in southeast Michigan, just outside the great city of Ann Arbor. I know Dave likes that, so. But, yeah, I've been with Insight Fire Training for a couple years, and I've been teaching for a little bit longer than that with a few other companies, and a lot of good people in my career, a lot of good mentors. If there's one claim to fame I have, it's that I've had a lot of people that have taken me under their wing and brought me along and have helped me out. So hopefully I can do the same. And I know Thomas is in the same mindset too for all you guys listening today, and help educate you and at least give you a general idea on thermal imaging and the uses for it.
Thomas, tell us about yourself.
So I'm Thomas. I've been in fire service for 17 years now. I work for, right now I'm a captain on Ladder Company 24 in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I started out like Jake, like most people in volunteer service, and worked my way up to where I am now. Originally from a very rural area of Kentucky, so coming from small town to Charlotte, North Carolina was a pretty big culture shock to me. But like Jake, lucky enough to have some really good mentors from the volunteer service all the way up through, and been with Insight Training and Andy Starnes for the last 5 years. And just like Jake, trying to spread the passion, spread the word, and help out any way I can.
Definitely. And this is a topic we really haven't hit on yet. So I'm glad you guys are coming in to talk thermal and talk RIT and RIT teams. So
I'm glad to be here, and we thank you guys for having us on too.
Absolutely. So glad to have you here. Even though, Jake may be from the state up north, and I happen to be a Buckeye from Ohio. We'll let that go, though. We'll let that go.
And we figured this all out just yesterday, so there was a little like, oh, we got.
Wait a minute. There's a little rivalry here. There's a little rivalry here, huh, Jake?
If we had more time, we may not have actually had it.
So, no, welcome, guys. I'm glad you're both on here, and I know, as John said, this is a new topic for us, and really getting into, the use of thermal imaging. I think it's one of those tools that we carry that, sometimes we think about and we utilize it, but we utilize it maybe after the fact or in active suppression. But, its abilities and capabilities broadly span that ability. So I'm glad you're here today. And, Jake, I think you were going to kind of start it off and talk a little bit about, how it can be utilized in rapid interventions, and that tool in an effective, maybe a different mindset than we usually think of it.
Yeah, so both of us, this tool does not replace our basic fundamentals. It enhances them. So it's funny you guys talked about Dr. Gassaway. I listened to when you had him on a couple weeks ago, or months ago, it's probably been, about situational awareness. But he hit on the fact of all of our senses are taken away, when we go into structure fires, and how important those are to our situational awareness. So the imager gives us one of those senses back, and helps enable us to be more situationally aware and be aware of what's going on. So rapid intervention, I'll share the screen with you guys here for a sec. So these are just some stats from Project Mayday. Don Abbott, if no one's checked out his website or any of his research and statistics, please do so. He's got a lot of phenomenal things, but rapid intervention is not rapid. So it's one of those things we call in the fire service rapid, but it's not. The courses that are being taught out there are great courses, great skill stations, all great things that we need to do. But I haven't been to all of them, but the ones that I have been to, they either briefly mention the thermal imager and using it, but they never actually get into actually using it. And the issue with rapid intervention and Insight's take on rapid interventions team is we call it buying back the time. And in order for me to buy something back, I have to invest in it, and it takes effort for me to do so. So these are just some times to resolve or clear the Mayday that he has. You guys can look over and see them, but the ones I want you to pay attention to is here, the 33%, 26, and 18. So if you add all those up, that's almost 80% of the incidents go from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. And from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like that long of a time, but the issue being is that all firefighters, when do we decide to call the Mayday? Is it quickly or not quickly? It's not quickly. It's when we're sucking in our face piece. We're very reluctant to call for help, and that's just in our DNA and in our blood. So the point being with all this is that we are behind the clock when that Mayday is started. So we need to do things and be very proactive in RIT. That's going to help us again buy back that time and be able to be more effective in our RIT operations.
That's one of those crazy things. You never really sit back and think of it that way. And rapid really isn't rapid, right?
No,
at all. And those are great statistics, Jake. And I think that's something we need to make sure we really, I would say, absorb that information and put it into our local protocols or maybe our local RIT SOGs, right?
Yeah, right. And just remember, I'm not familiar, at least up here in my little neck of the woods. Most of the time when people are assigned to RIT, how do they feel about that? Generally not good, because you're not working, but that's the time, again, we just have to be aware and change our mindset of we need to be very proactive in getting things set up for us to be successful if we're needed. We don't want to be caught with our pants down, so to speak.
Jake, along the RIT things, just a thing that happened here locally that actually has been very it was perceived as a negative, but has really been a positive for my local region, Central Ohio. We actually had a fire, and you mentioned, hey, but we don't want to be on the RIT crew. I don't want to be that crew. I'd rather be in there working the job, right? But it was actually a house fire here in the local city, and the RIT team showed up. What do? You're outside, you're prepping, you're doing everything. But from the general public's eyes, why isn't Jake in there fighting the fire? Why isn't he going through the door? And so there was this perception thing about RIT and misunderstanding. And so there was criticism that hit the media about the firefighters sort of just standing outside watching. However, that provoked a series of articles that then came out through the local newspaper from the fire service, educating the public on why are these people standing outside? Why are they just putting ladders against windows? Why aren't they doing anything? And it really is that RIT education for the general public to acknowledge and say, they're a critical piece of the team and their responsibility is X. And here is why you saw them doing that, because they are supposed to be that rapid intervention team. So I guess, how do you break down, the different pieces or how does Insight really define or break down RIT in the priorities here accordingly?
Well, we do, if I can get it to change here. There we go. Bring it up real quick. So we break it down into pre-activation and post-activation. So as you're the RIT team, your pre-activation, it's kind of like what you just said, Dave, is your pre-game planning. The better the pre-game planning, the better the throwing the ladders, the better the forcing the doors that need to be forced, and again, closing them and keeping them shut. But each step that I can get out of the way, if I am actually activated, is going to help on the right side here of this game time execution. So we're not going to execute well if we don't pre-game well. And again, we all watch sports, and me and Dave are going back and forth about Michigan and Ohio State football, but we rarely see the amount of work that these athletes have to put in, basic repetitions over and over and over and over and over again, to be able to execute and look good on game day. And we need to have the same mindset as a RIT team too. Again, that pre-game planning. What am I doing? We call it softening the building, getting that building ready to go. tracking the teams inside, knowing where everybody is, everything that goes along with that. And then, of course, we'll hit a few things on the camera here and what that can do to help enable you and make you quicker that way as well.
One thing that stands out to me too is, and we've talked about just how impressive and how amazing really a lot of our PPE is, our gear is, the stuff we're using, our hand tools, our saws, that stuff's come a long way. It's gotten lighter, it's gotten more durable, more reliable over several generations really and decades, but we also need to know the limitations. Our SCBAs have limitations. Our gear has limitations, even though it's great stuff, and so do our thermal imaging cameras. And I think we just need to know what those are too. And it's one thing to sit in a room with daylight and without gloves on and use this thing like it's nothing. Well, that totally changes when you're in gear in an environment where maybe you don't have your dexterity with your fingers anymore, and just the whole slew of that. We need to know our limitations too with gear and equipment.
And just the basic understanding of the cameras. In the industrial world, they've got to go through a 40-hour class before they can even pick that camera up and use it. And what happens in the fire service? Here you go. There's a green button, turn it on. And we don't, it's a complex piece of equipment that just understanding the basics goes a long way.
Definitely.
And one of the things, Jake, if I may, one of the things that we talk about in all the classes is a good engine fireman, you can hand them a nozzle, or a good truck company fireman, you hand them a Halligan bar. They can talk about those two pieces of equipment for hours and hours and hours. But you take a thermal imaging camera off the truck and hand it to them and say, all right, tell me everything you know about this piece of equipment. And like Jake said, hey, well, the green button turns it on and the red's bad. And that's pretty much all I know about that piece of equipment. So it's upwards of a $10,000 piece of equipment that we have on our apparatus that very, very few firefighters actually know those limitations of it and the advantages of it. And both are extremely important. And like Jake said in the very beginning of this, nobody from Insight Training is going to tell you the thermal imaging camera replaces fundamental firefighter skills, but it can enhance what we do. It can make us better at what we do, and it's another tool that we've got in our toolbox.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, so Jake, maybe tie this back in to the RIT piece again, and so how can I utilize that tick maybe to make rapid intervention truly rapid instead of rapid's not so rapid, right?
Yeah. So there's a few things we'll just kind of go over them briefly here, where the camera can really help you out. So again, this is in that pre-activation phase, and the view on our left here is going to be what we're seeing with our eye, and the view on the right is a camera. So what we call this is a tactical 360, using the camera as you walk around the building, and think about, again, RIT, what I'm looking at, and the wealth of information or the enhanced information that I'm getting on the right versus the left as we go around. So again, I can see some convective currents coming out under this porch. Is that a big deal? Yeah. Could I have fire underneath it? It's giving me a better view as I'm going around. Think about crews inside here that are working. Looking on the right here on the bottom, do I have fire underneath that floor? Again, I see some smoke pushing out on the left. It's giving me a better idea of, okay, I've got crews in there. Where are they? We might need to start going. Look at the reflection again on the bottom side there for the heat coming out. Once we get up to some of these doors and you peek in, just being able to understand the layout of the room. If we have to go in that room as a RIT team, I can take my team, show them the view through the camera, and we understand, there's a couple bedrooms on the right. On the left, there's a hallway. It just takes away a lot of the confusion when you first go into a building of not understanding where you are. And again, you're buying back that time. I'm trying to save time because I'm so far behind the clock to begin with when these things start to happen. So that's one of them. There is a tactical 360. Another one that it's useful for here again is look at the hose line here. Again, it's dark because it's got cool water going through it. So again, if we're coming in instead of following a hose line with our hand, again, can I just scan and follow a team, and how much quicker is that going to be for me? Again, look at these guys' tanks on their back. Same concept as that cold line. Why is that tank showing up so black? It's full of cold, compressed air. Will that save me time when I get to the downed fireman and I can just scan his tank, and I know he has air in his tank, and I can scan his low pressure lines going up to his regulator. I can scan his face piece, and his face piece is going to be dark, and I know that he has air. I don't have to try to reach down, Feel if he has his face piece on. What's probably going to happen if I reach down and I feel his face piece? When I'm all hyped up and excited, there's a really good chance that I'm going to knock that off his face. Is that a big deal? Absolutely it is. So
yeah.
again, we're speeding things up. I can scan somebody. Every rep class I've ever been to, they've got a 2 or 3 hour station that just covers air. We can scan somebody in 10 seconds and know that they're good to go. If I can hear them breathing, all that stuff showing up dark, look for a secondary means of egress, and we're out the door. Quick and efficient. Again, we're saving that time.
Yeah.
That's
great visual, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. One of those things that I think, John, if you remember back, I don't know which episode it was. We actually had a reference in kind of what was happening in the fire service, but maybe it was even Gasaway. But somebody indicated, hey, we need to think about how we utilize our ticks maybe a little bit more differently, particularly in rehab applications. So people coming out of the fire and utilizing the tick to observe the body heat or heat exposure that the firefighter had been exposed to because of the differential colors from helmet to boots, right? And using that as a visual indicator to what kind of stress load had that firefighter seen while in the active of suppression.
Yeah.
So
we don't know how hot we are half the time. Our gear's so good, right? I mean, it's several minutes later, and you're like, oh, wow, what's going on? Oh, okay, now I know. Too late, right? Like, we should know when we're coming out. People need to help us see where we're at on our gear and make sure we're operating within its design recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake. So I think in the RIT application, you brought a couple great points up in there. One is the 360 walk around. Take that camera with you. That could actually apply to RIT or even first on officer. That might give you that advanced look at something you can't see.
Yep.
So great pieces. Thank you very much for that.
Definitely. Thomas, you've been anxiously waiting. No, I'm just kidding. We know you have some stuff to share too. So
what's that?
I said we've got some stuff. We know you're ready to share too. So we'll give you a chance to take over here for a little bit. Tell us a little bit about some of the general information on Insight. Give us a little spot on Insight as well before we get going.
First of all, with that, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Insight's founder, his name is Andy Starnes. He's been in the fire service. He's a battalion chief at my department in Charlotte. He's a battalion chief of Battalion 8. He was my captain for 5 years. That's how I got into this at Station 2 in downtown Charlotte when he was a company officer. He actually got into this several years ago through his dad, who ran Project Kill the Flashover. Project started out right here. Basically, they got tired of seeing firefighters get caught in the same extreme fire behavior events and wanted to figure out what was going on and what they could do to help. So he got involved in Kill the Flashover. They had a thermal imaging guru that was a part of that, and that's kind of how Andy fell into that thermal imaging role through that. Found a passion for it. Started learning about it. Over time, he brought the rest of us into it. And he actually preparing for one of the burns several years ago for Kill the Flashover, he actually was prepping the house and fell through a floor and hurt his knee. So it was an off-duty training. He was off duty he was off the truck for about 8 months.
Wow.
After having knee surgery, and so decided that it was time to take the show on the road. I guess better way to say it than that. And time to take the show on the road and start educating as many firefighters as we could on thermal imaging and how thermal imaging can advance fire service. And today we have Jake is our rapid intervention SME. I handle most of the fireground search classes, primary search, vendor search, things like that. Andy is a big time engine guy. Me and Jake joke we're pretty much the only truckies in the crew. So we have some fun when we're teaching classes. Andy does most of our company officer level education and size up and fire attack, direct fire attack with thermal imaging camera. And then we've got several other instructors that specialize in drone operations. Our friend, our brother Joey Baxa from West Virginia. Shout out to instructor Joey Baxa. He handles a lot. He's in a very small community as well and does a lot of low staffing, low manpower operations. So he kind of runs with that on how thermal imaging camera can make his operations more efficient. But we've just kind of evolved to this all-encompassing, or as encompassing as we possibly can be in how thermal imaging can advance fire service, and Andy's been instrumental in that and in pushing us to that point. Every single one of us are thermography certified. That 40-hour certification that Jake talked about that we have to have, that industry has to have before they can even point a thermal imaging camera at a boiler and say it's however many degrees. We've all taken our own time, our own money to go get those certifications, and
Wow.
you know, moving on. I mean, we've gotten to the point where we're FDIC instructors, Firehouse Expo instructors. We were supposed to be at Mile High Fire Conference in Denver this past year, doing my search class. Me, Jake, and Joey were supposed to be there, but it's been canceled thanks a lot COVID. But but it is what it is. We'll be back next year, just like everything else. But we won't get off topic with COVID. But
Yeah. Thanks.
That's kind of where Insight Training's at, and the sky's the limit. Hopefully, as long as we're influencing people in the right way, and we're learning as well. Well, we'll keep on keeping on. So
yeah.
Well, Thomas, I mean, when it comes down to these cameras, right? You guys know them inside and out, and that's the reason you're here. You guys are some of the best experts here, and can give us some details from a firefighter perspective. But how has the thermal imaging, evolved over the years? What's changed?
There's a lot that's changed with thermal imaging cameras. I mean, we just, for example, last year, my department, we just upgraded cameras from cameras that we purchased back in the early 2000s up to cameras of today. And you can really, the best way to describe it is to they're similar to TVs in the increase in upgrades in television technology. I compare thermal imaging cameras from 15 to 20 years ago to grandma's black and white, the old box console wood frame TV with the knobs on it, no remote control, things like that. And today's thermal imaging cameras, the increased resolution, the faster processor speeds, are more like your 4Ks or your high definition televisions. And the way that we describe it is, you wouldn't be, when we talk to people about what to look for in a thermal imaging camera, I say, well, you wouldn't want somebody searching for your kid with grandma's black and white, would you? Or well, you wouldn't invite people over to watch Super Bowl on grandma's black and white, would you? You want 4K, you want high definition, you want all that kind of stuff. And same thing goes to thermal imaging cameras. You don't want to search for your kids, other people's kids with grandma's black and white. You want the best of the best. So.
Right. I wish they were priced like TVs, but that's we just aren't there yet. Or we don't have one, right?
Unfortunately, we're not there yet. As
I got you.
Get better and better, and as cameras have become more and more used in the fire service, then just like anything else, prices will start to come down, technology will start to go up. We were using at my department up until last year. We were using a camera that's 160 by 120 resolution. Today, the cameras that we're using are 320, 240 resolution. So an increase of almost 50,000 pixels. In that, not to mention our old cameras were 9 hertz processor speed. The cameras we're operating with now are 50 to 60 hertz processor speed. So
Thomas, really quick, break that down to the layman. What does that mean?
Okay.
Processor speeds. Help them understand that.
Resolution, first of all, is, most people understand somewhat resolution. Resolution is when I say pixels. So 120 by 160 by 120. That's pixels one way or the other. So you multiply that, each individual pixel. I think that comes out to about 10 to 12,000 pixels. Each one of those pixels is a temperature measurement. And that temperature measurement corresponds in the core of the camera to a colorized image. And all those pixels together give us that cool gray to black to red to yellow to orange image that you see on a thermal imaging camera. Newer cameras, upwards of 80 to 100,000 pixels, do the same thing. So it's more pixels, higher quality image, more detail in the image. The farther you can see, the better distance you have. So whereas old cameras, 160 by 120 cameras, for instance, we used to say that you could see a child's hand outstretched like this at 7 feet away. Whereas the newer cameras that we're dealing with, you're supposed to be able to see that same hand, same outstretched fingers at anywhere from 15 to 20 feet away, just depending on the camera that you're looking at. So you can see farther away, you can see in higher detail, and be a lot more sure of what you're seeing. Hertz processor speed, related to your eye, because that's what you're really doing with thermal imaging cameras. You're giving your eyes back. You're giving your firefighters their eyes back. So Hertz and processor speed is the speed at which your eye sees. The human eye sees at 29 hertz. So anything lower than that is faster than your own eye can see. 9 hertz, which is the cameras that I used to work with before we got our new cameras in Charlotte. They would lag a lot. So when firefighters get frustrated with cameras because they say, oh, it lags or it keeps kicking or it keeps skipping, the image skips. That's the processor speed that's affecting that. So the faster you can't scan as fast with those lower processor speed cameras. The newer cameras that have, like I said, up to 40 to 50 to 60 hertz processor speed, those are crazy fast camera. The image refresh rate is insanely fast. You can scan faster with them. They can be a lot more accurate and less chance that you're going to miss something in that image.
Thomas, I think you brought up a lot of really great points, particularly for anybody who's out there looking for cameras, things to keep in mind when you're actually on that market, because not all cameras are equal, right? And we're not here to sell a camera. We're not here to promote a camera, but the key piece in this puzzle is, I think back to my department, 23 years ago, I picked up the concrete block camera. It took 2 hands to hold, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that thing was really expensive.
It was absolutely
the chief's
right.
like, don't use that because that's expensive.
And now we've got a good camera on each truck that is easily in one hand. I can quickly view. I can move around real frequently. But on top of that, I've got one on every single one of our first out air packs. Mm-hmm. So every firefighter is carrying one personally on them into the structure, as well as then can get a little better, higher resolution with the camera we've got. And I think, you summed it up really in a great way in the technology advancements and how it's so dramatically changed in the last 20 years alone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, thermal imaging is not a new thing to the fire service. I mean, it's been available to us since the 70s or 80s. It's just the more technology advances, the better things get. You summed it up really. The cheaper it gets for us. So, and obviously, the cheaper it gets, the more firefighters are going to have that technology available to them. I mean, companies like Scott and MSA are already starting to put them in face pieces, and integrate them into our air packs. Draeger's actively working on. I mean, if you think that all of these air pack manufacturers are not currently working with thermal imaging companies to try and be the first one to have a really, really good system in a face piece, they're going to be behind. 5 years from now, companies that don't offer that are going to be behind. And that's just the speed at which the world turns right now. You brought up anybody interested in buying thermal imaging cameras right now. That's another thing that we do at Insight Training as well, is we help you kind of determine what's best for you and what's best for your department, because it's hard to make that decision when you don't have as much education about the thermal imaging cameras. Because then what are you doing? You're listening to the salespeople, and the salespeople are, no offense to salespeople, some of them are jam up on their knowledge, but they're going to tell you what you want to hear to try to sell a camera. That's what I would do if I worked in sales. So that's kind of the way that works. So, it's hard when you don't have as much knowledge on that product to make an educated decision when all you're looking at is dollar signs and brochures and manuals, and it's hard to really break that down. So we do have programs that offer assistance there as well.
That's great. And we'll keep your website there too, just for anybody that wants to check that out. And I checked out the website. There's quite a bit on there. So great website, by the way. And we appreciate your guys' time and expertise here. Is there anything else? I mean, we've talked about a lot in a short amount of time, which always happens on the jump seat, of course.
Absolutely.
Man, anything else we should know? Any other resources for departments out there that they can? I mean, your website, of course, but are there any other places with just some good training too, when they can't get you in, every time?
Yeah, so one of the other things that we offer is we actually have a Pantheon Training subscription where we have upwards of, I want to say it's 30-something hours of webinars available. And these webinars are, again, they are search webinars. My search webinar, that's a 3-hour program, is up there right now. Jake's got some writ stuff up there. Andy's got countless hours of webinars up there that are, you subscribe to Pantheon. I think it's I don't want to quote how much it is a month, but it's less than $30 a month to subscribe to this and have unlimited access to our blogs, our articles, our training resources, our training videos, those webinars. We also, the Insight Training and the Tactical Thermal Imaging YouTube pages. Those are all run by Andy, and those are just quick little 1, 2, 3 minutes, one to 2 to 3 minute videos on thermal imaging. You can reach Jake, me, Andy, Joey, all of us, our emails, our Facebook pages, individual Facebook pages. Jake Latson's on Facebook. I'm on Facebook at Instructor Thomas Anderson. Andy Starnes is on Facebook at Instructor Andy Starnes. Joey Baxa, Instructor Joey Baxa. These are all ways that you can reach us, that you can get in touch with us. And anytime anybody has any questions about thermal imaging, we love to talk it up. I mean, obviously, we've taken your 30-minute cast and taken it to 36 minutes already. So, we love to talk thermal imaging. We love to especially talk about our own personal areas of passion. Jake with the RIT stuff, nobody better. I love talking to people about search. I love learning about search, learning new techniques, things like that. So there's a lot of different ways that people can get in touch with us, and a lot of different avenues for training that we offer. Some free, some aren't, but we can definitely get that training into your hands.
Well, Thomas, Jake, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you guys watching, right at the bottom of the screen here, we've got their contact information. I'd encourage you want to know more, you got more details you want to dive into with them, give them a holler. You can check them out at insighttrainingllc.com or their personal emails there. So, gentlemen, thanks to both of you. Thomas, you're welcome back anytime. Jake, we'll see about how that team up north does.
Don't do it.
Buckeyes. And then
let's end this on a good note. We got to end this on a good note now.
So, no, much appreciative to both of you, and we just ask that you guys stay safe. And thanks for doing your part to educate in this industry, making the fire service better than we found it.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, and thank you guys for doing what you guys are doing with this cast. Awesome work, good stuff.
Thanks, guys. Well, John, one more down, right? Holy cow! And I saw there was some comments coming in here, and so people checking in. I think it was somebody from Lynchburg, Virginia, Brian Summers. Brian, thanks for watching. We're glad you could be here today. I know I've got a couple people who are being really bashful out in New Jersey. So Todd, you better be watching here. I didn't see your comment today, but I know you're on, and thanks to all those guys out there in New Jersey land following us as well. So, I think we got a good one next week, right?
We do, yes. We definitely do. I'll got a little preview here we'll put up. So next week's going to be next Friday, of course, on the 21st. We're going to be bringing in Chief Richard Ray. He's going to be talking to us about some tactical considerations with combining nozzles and hose combinations. He's also a very knowledgeable instructor. He would have been at FDIC this year, but as we know, they didn't have it. So, but anyway, you don't want to miss next week. I think it's very practical, very relevant to all of the spokes of the wheel here of the fire service. So, yeah, that's all I got, Dave. Anything else before we conclude for today?
The only thing I can say is thanks for joining us. Check us out, not only at IDEX Fire and Safety, Hale, Akron, and Hurst Jaws of Life, but also on our jump seat page. Now we have our own jump seat page, so check us out. You can get all the previous episodes there on Facebook at the jump seat,
Sure.
and then also you can follow us on the IDEX Fire Safety blog as well as idexfiresafety.com. The jump seats tab is right there. So there's plenty of ways to catch any of the previous episodes you've missed. But don't miss next week, because I think we're going to have another great episode with Chief Richard Ray. John?
All right, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you next Friday. Same place, same time.